broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Well, good morning, everybody. This is Charles Owen from Paladin, and welcome to the Paladin University. Today, our topic is tips and tricks handling holiday returns. So we'll be going through this presentation. I'm probably going to spend about 15 minutes today, so it's going to be a quick one. We're going to go through and show you the best practice of how to do returns and deal with all the rush of returns coming back. Hopefully you won't have that many, but you'll be able to know how to handle it based on this. This is being recorded, so will be available for review later, either today or tomorrow at the latest. And if you have any questions, please go ahead and put them into the question box. You can just add the question in, and I'll read those at the end of the presentation. So if you are interrupted during this at any time by a customer, obviously customers come first, so please feel free to help the customer. And then if you need to, you can go back and watch this at any time on the recording. So let's go ahead and get started. So what you're going to learn is we're going to have a couple of slides here on just the state of the retail industry as it relates to returns. What the return rate is by retail category is kind of interesting. And how do we convert returns into opportunity? Also, we're going to discuss some of your rules and best practices for returned items. You are in charge. You can determine what the rules are, and we will go through a list of those recommended ones. And then I will go through the Paladin return setup options. So there are about 3 different windows that you can go to choose how you want returns to be handled in your store. Then we'll go through a how-to. We're going to discuss processing returns with a receipt, processing returns without a receipt, and processing defective item returns, as well as some of the reports that you might get at the end of the day. You can generate reports at any time for any particular employee or all your employees when it comes to returns. So let's look at the state of retail returns. So online sales and returns more than doubled in 2020. No surprise, a lot more purchases as well. And they're a major driver to the overall returns growth. Total in-store and online returns account for about $400 billion in lost sales for U.S. retailers only annually. For every $100 return, retailers lose about $5.90 to return fraud. And programs like Buy Online, Return in Store, Click and Collect have also added to fraudulent activity. And these are all from the National Retail Federation. So what is being returned? So the return rate by payment type, cash is at 12, almost 13%, credit cards 23% nearly, debit cards about 7%, and other 14%. The return rate by retail category I thought was quite interesting. If we look down at home improvements, we're at 11.5%, which is one of the higher numbers up there, not as bad as auto parts or apparel. Housewares is also up there. Pharmacy, as far as drugs go in pharmacies, 1.6. Not a whole lot of returns going on there. Obviously, I don't think you're going to get back your drugs that you picked up for the holiday season. Beauty supplies, which also may be tied to pharmacy as well, 4.3%. And sporting goods, 7.6%. So that is the return rate by retail category, again, brought to you by National Retail Federation. The survey average was about 10.6%. So let's look at converting returns into opportunities. So this information came from the National Retail Federation group. This is obvious, right? If you've got people coming back into your store, there's your opportunity to upsell them. So returns can be good, right? It's often your best customers make the most returns. So you want to treat them good because they're spending more money. Hopefully when they come into the store, that's an opportunity you have to upsell them on something different. Convert their return into another purchase. And online shoppers too, you can also convert those into in-store buyers as well through this process of making sure you have the answers, that they looking at questions they're asking, and just providing them with good customer service and nurturing those relationships, right? Returns can be managed, and I will show you on the next slide how to do that. And then returns provide a chance to sell to known customers as well, as we discussed before. they are the often it's your return customers that your best customers that bring the returns into the store. All right, moving forward. So these are some of the Paladin rules and best practices for returned items. This isn't the end all. This is just a list of suggestions, right? So you set the rules in your store for returns. Consider the following best practices, right? I've seen customers do this, and I see it also at the bottom of some receipts. They have an expiration date for returns. Returns not valid after 6 months or something like that. You can add that as a footer onto every invoice if you want. That's very easy to do in the Forms tab under Setup. You can also offer cash or credit only for those customers with a receipt, right? So they can get cash or credit returned back to their cards if they have a receipt. If they don't have a receipt, maybe you make a policy where you can offer store credit, or you offer in-store gift card returns. So if you have a gift card program, we have a great program that we offer through WorldPay. If the customer has a return, you can actually load that return amount, whether it's $1.50 or $1,500. You can add that back onto a gift card and hand that to the customer. So now they are forced to come back to your store to use that card because it's not valid anywhere else. It's just a great way to maintain your margins and your profit by not giving everything back. They're going to come back, hopefully, and spend that money, or somebody's going to use that card. So require cashiers to match a return with the original invoice. So whether you have a return or a receipt or not, cashiers can do their due diligence to find that original receipt. We'll go through that in the next couple of slides here. But in order to do this, to make it real simple, you'll activate the capture return item invoice number in Paladin. We'll see that in slide 9, how to actually set that up. All the returns that I'll be showing you make the assumption that you have activated this particular feature. So here's the first setup option in Paladin as it relates to returns. You can require signatures for returns, so they can actually be forced to sign the document or the receipt for the returned item. And that just verifies, that they were there, they picked it up. It's not fraud, it's legitimate. And you just go under File Setup under the Invoice Store tab, and there's a button there that says Require signature for returns. And you just check that, and you're good to go. The second return option in Paladin is you can require manager approval for returns and require manager approval for returns over a specific amount, dollar amount. So to get that set up, again, you go into the File Setup menu and you click the Company tab. And in the Manager Approval Required pane, you'll see on the left-hand side as you scoot down through all the different options in the Company tab, you'll see Manager Approval Required, and to the right of that says Returns Require Manager Approval. And you can set a particular dollar amount here. Set the value for the not to exceed return amount unless approved by a manager. So let's say you set it at $20. Well, that cashier or cashiers assigned to this will only have the capability to return items up to a $20 credit, nothing more, without, unless they have a manager approval. So it's another great feature to prevent internal theft and fraud as well. Your third option, this is the option I was talking about. This is slide 9. We're talking about activating the capture return item invoice number. This is the recommended best practice, and the only reason being that it makes it really easy for you to return the exact amount that was charged to the customer. Now, you as well as I know that a lot of people get discounts. Let's say the item was damaged somehow. Cashier or manager gave a 10% discount or a 20% discount, and now they're coming back to return the item. Well, you want to make sure that you return the item and you give them the exact money that they spent. This is the best way to assure that that's going to happen. So this is our recommended best practice. So you go into File Setup, click the Invoice Store tab, and in the Invoice pane, you'll select Capture Return Item Invoice Number. You can see that, and then you just save it, and you're good to go. So let's look at how this screen looks when you're processing returns with the receipt. So what is the proper procedure for this? I would imagine today, if you don't have this particular feature activated, you just scan the item and put a -1, right? Well, that's great. That works just fine. The only problem is you're just giving them back the current list price for that item. The price may have gone up, which is more than likely, and you're giving them now more money than they gave you originally. So again, we really like to stress the best practice of activating that switch that we just saw on the screen prior to this, where you set the returned item invoice number to active. When you do that, now when you scan the item and you put a negative number into the quantity, it prompts you and says, hey, enter the original invoice number for this return item. And now you just would scan the bottom of the receipt. So we're assuming they have a receipt. They gave that receipt to you. You have access to it. You don't need to collect it. You can just have them show you the receipt and then scan the bottom barcode. That bottom barcode represents the invoice number, which will tie it to specifically that item that was purchased. So it just really enables you to focus on giving back the money that they spent for it. So again, in this process, you would scan the UPC code at checkout, enter the -1, and then the box comes up and you scan the receipt barcode. And that's it. Now, if you want to associate this with a customer, you can also add the customer to this particular invoice at the top. Just put in the customer's name and it'll be associated with this return. When you scan the barcode on the bottom of the original invoice or manually enter that invoice number, will validate the existence of that particular item on that particular invoice. And if it was purchased, the purchase is confirmed, and now you're returning the amount that they paid, nothing more, nothing less. Underneath the particular item on that line 1, it's going to tell you, hey, returned item, in this case BNTDR, original invoice was 63820 on July 15th at 4:43 p.m. So it tells you everything you need to know, and that information is then printed on the receipt. So the return purchase verification is also on the invoice. So on their invoice, the return invoice, where you're giving them back the money or credit or however you're doing it, it will put right on there, hey, this was returned based on the original invoice number. In this case, it's a different receipt, but you get the gist of it. When the return is complete, the receipt will reference the original invoice number. Processing returns without a receipt. Is that possible? Absolutely. Probably a majority of the people coming back don't have a receipt. Now, if they're a known customer, makes it real simple because you can just bring up the customer, go into advanced lookup, and search the history tab and click on part number plus customer, scan the part number, it comes up. You can validate the price that was sold and the date that it was sold and just put a -1, press F8 to add those items to the invoice, and complete the transaction. That is without a receipt, and you're doing it by actually, in this case, looking up a receipt for a particular customer. Now let's assume you don't have a customer name, right? You don't know them from Adam. They just came in off the street as a cash paying customer, cash and carry kind of deal. You can still go into advanced lookup, search the history tab, and select part number in this case, and scan the UPC code number of that particular item, and it will list all of the products and all of the people and transactions that had that particular part in it. So it will show you everybody who bought that part, including cash sales, along with the date and time and everything else. So based on that information, you can figure out who, which invoice it was. And if you can't, well, that's a risk that we all take. But if you wanted to do further investigation, you can double click on any one of those and to bring up the original invoice, and you can inquire, say, hey, did you buy a hammer with this? I see a hammer was also bought at the same time. Or you can ask them, were there any other items that you purchased with this? And if they say a hammer, boom, that's the one. So just the different ways you can check it. Now again, also when you find the original receipt, it will return, it will put that information underneath the particular part numbers. Right, in this case, return item part 1, original invoice was 730031, and so on. Now, let's say the cashier can't find it. That's fine. In all scenarios, if they don't put an invoice number in or scan the receipt or have a receipt to scan, it will say skip by cashier. That's all. It's not gonna say nope, you can't do this return. It's just gonna say return part number skip by cashier. So that being said, now on your reports at the end of the day, you can look at specific cashiers that skipped a return. And that enables you to just verify and talk to them and figure out different ways that you can tie those previously purchased items to the return. So you can also process defective items as returns. The only difference here is you're going to click the box DEF to the left of the item that you've scanned in, whether you bring it up through advanced lookup or scan the item. If you put a negative, if you click that defective checkbox on the left-hand side, it'll go right to the quantity, and at that point you put in the quantity amount that you're returning defective, whether it's -1 or -2 or what have you. By doing so, you'll notice the box down below, it will reference defective in the inventory, but it will not add it to the active inventory. Right? So when you process the return, the item will be added to your defective inventory count, but not to your stock on hand. Right? That's important to know. And now when you want to return all those items for a particular vendor, you can do the defective items report, and it will show you every item that was returned defective for that particular supplier. And then when you're done with that report, you can just say clear all those fields and we can start over. So one of the final slides here is the reporting and accountability reports. So we all want to make sure that we can see this activity every day on returns. How do you do that? Real simple. Just go into the reports module, click on what I need to know under sales analysis, and click on the salesperson exception report. You set the desired invoice date range there. In this case, I just have it set to 1 day, but you can go, oh, let's do everything this week. Let's say it's Friday and you want to see everything that was returned this week. More than likely, you do this on a daily basis, but it's up to you. Now, on the right-hand side, there's some additional settings. You can look at price overrides, include non-inventory items, include manual discounts, and include accounting overrides. Well, the box that we're interested in for looking at returns is include negative quantity sold. Those are returns, folks. That will give you a report of every invoice on on multiple sheets of paper with all the details and exactly what part numbers were scanned without verifying their existence. And there you have it. To learn more, you can go into our knowledge base at portal.paladinpos.com if you don't have the application in front of you. If you have the application in front of you, just go to the top, click on Help, Knowledge Base, and you can search on returns, about returns. So just to give a plug for the next meeting or the next webinar we have, it's on December 21st. It's how to prepare your end of year reports. Hopefully you all know what to do here. There's a couple of snapshot in time reports that you need to produce on December 31st that your accountant's going to want. And stay tuned for those and what those are. More than likely, hopefully you have those already set up as preset reports in your inventory module, and you're already getting those at the end of every month automatically. That I will show you how to do on December 21st. It's very important. There's some other things that you can do to clean up as well, like cleaning up your backup files and things of that nature. So definitely a worthwhile presentation to go to. Now, I don't see any questions at this point, so I must have been pretty thorough about this. As you know, I really appreciate, we as Paladin really appreciate the fact that you are attending this webinar. Just tells me that you want to learn more about the system, use the system more to your advantage to increase your efficiencies. and this is just part of the process to do that. Learning more about Paladin. We do also provide training. You can always call us up. We'll do some enhanced or advanced training for you. Retail Science is a great place to go to find different relevant articles that we write and syndicate to different publications. The self-help portals I mentioned is at portal.paladinpos.com, and you can view these webinars at any time just by adding a /webinars to that, or going to our main paladinpointofsale.com website. At the top of the screen, you can select Help Portal to get to that, or Retail Science, or Paladin Store. So again, don't see any questions, so I'm just going to say God bless you, everybody. Thank you so much for attending. Stay safe, and until next time, see you later.